Hey there, it's Chloe, co-director of the La Chiara Method and your podcast co-host. We've created something really special for you. A free 8-day mini course designed to transform your life in 3 minutes a day or less. Each day, you'll receive an aha-provoking question and bite-sized meditation that helps to unearth unconscious beliefs and connect you to your divine essence. Tired of swirling in the chaos? Head to lachiaramethod.com/podcast-gift or find that link in the show notes. Here's to your healing and a clearer, happier you. Welcome to the Activate Change podcast, where transformation is just a conversation away. Each episode offers an intimate front row seat to an authentic and unscripted personal healing session with renowned healer and creator of the La Chiara Method, Gabrielli La Chiara. Our incredibly generous and courageous guests explore their genuine struggles, longings, and deepest desires in these sessions, and we, as listeners, have the honor and privilege to witness their sacred and profound healing journeys. As you listen, we invite you to receive as well, feeling into where the healing and insights that transpire might spark transformation in your own life. And stay tuned until the end because I, Chloë Faith Urban, will discuss the session and share a skill or framework that Gabrielli used, which you can apply to your own personal healing. This podcast does contain adult language and content, so if you have little ones around you, you may want to use headphones. In this episode, Gabrielli has a session with Matisse, a poet who's in the process of renegotiating old habits and patterns in their relationship to themselves and with others. They explore what it will take to receive more than ever before without being greedy or selfish, and where they might be holding back in ways that may be blocking them from their creativity, their gifts, and truly thriving in life. Matisse has extensive experience with the method through sessions with me, Chloe, and is in the process of getting their Radical Life Coach certification with us. After their session, I share an incredibly helpful tool to help you in those moments in life when you feel triggered or super upset and it's hard to know what's what. Maybe it's a comment someone made or a situation that just doesn't seem that big of a deal on the surface, but it hits you hard. And suddenly you're flooded with intense emotions, sensations, or you're having flashbacks from the past. This tool will help bring you back into the present moment so you can know what you actually need. So stick around to the end. It's one of my favorites. Let's dive in. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Matisse. Thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm going to take a minute and land our energy together, and you can, be as you wish, eyes open, eyes closed. And I would invite you to think about your intention for our time. Good. I'm going to invoke that this time, this space, our time together is for you to receive, for whatever healing or awarenesses or insights you can have today. Whatever connection you can make to your own body, being, soul, spirit, communion. And I'm going to clear out anything in this space in either of us or between us that isn't required and activate change and generate healing immediately. And I'm going to command the vibrational source of consciousness to close circuits, to pull the window shades down on any other thoughts or energies or anything from anybody else's that would block us from showing up for you. There we go. Activate change, generate healing immediately.
Good. Tell me how I can help you today.
Whew, yes. I am. Yeah, I think that I was feeling earlier to maybe try to explore. I'm feeling the last, 48 hours or so, a lot of, it feels like a knot of aggravation or tension or activation that's kind of running down my throat into my diaphragm.
Okay.
And it's coming up in response to particular moments that feel kind of about either creative expression or intimate expression or receiving intimacy. And yeah, I don't really know. I've also just a different little piece of context is that I have been, as you know, I'm traveling in Europe, and I have been for the last 10 days almost at this really special place that's this artists collective. It's a collective run old convent in rural France, and it's also this old decaying building. And I have a big history with mold illness and have been doing so much work around shifting patterns of illness. And it's been a really interesting moment because I think a few years ago I would have had to immediately run out of here. And I've been doing a lot of moving stuff, and that's also just a layer I've been wondering about in that activation these last few years of now that I've been here for a minute. It's not that I can't feel the mold, it's just that it's not as strong as it's impacted me in the past. So yeah, I don't know to what degree that might also be a layer in what's coming up, but I think that this new piece of agitation feels sort of like it wasn't here a few days ago. So yeah.
I'm wondering if it makes, first of all, I just want to celebrate you. Wow, you're living in a place that you would have run away from at a different time in your life. And you're there and you're doing it and you're not sounding at all freaked out by it. It's just absolutely amazing. Wow. Yeah.
I've been freaked out in moments, but I've also been holding myself inside of it. So that's cool.
Yeah. Right. And to really kind of know you can handle it, whatever's there, that you're not necessarily injuring yourself by being there and just sucking it up, but that you have enough vitality, that you've done enough healing in your body to be able to handle some exposure is actually pretty darn amazing.
Yeah. It's not nothing.
Yeah, it's not nothing. I know. I really get it from being a person who has, had those sensitivities and literally had to leave places because of a speck of something to, what it takes in your life and how much work it takes and not knowing if we'll ever get there. And sometimes we don't, right? But then to all of a sudden be someplace and be I'm handling this, I'm doing it, I'm strong enough, holy shit. Yeah. It's really amazing. So I wanted to just name that and celebrate you. And it has an invitation in it because I can feel as I celebrate that some of that agitation may be because of it a little bit, and not because of it and oh, you're doing this thing and it's agitating you, not a direct correlation, but more that what else are you capable of? What else is trying to awaken? What else are you available for that maybe has been offline because there's been so many other physical issues to navigate, right?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah.
Sometimes agitation comes right before a breakthrough. So that's how I'm wondering about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was feeling it earlier because I was It's really been coming up in interactions with my partner, and then it was also coming up just in interactions with myself this morning and trying to write. And I feel like this summer has been a moment of just like creativity, like reopening after a long period of difficulty and dormancy. And in that, there's been some feelings of like, okay, I'm ready. And then some other feelings of like noticing restriction around just like inhibition, like things that I'm not expressing. And I was kind of sensing earlier that maybe there's something going on with the activation around inhibition, around expression. And yeah, that just feels related to what you just said. So
Yeah, I got teary in my eyes as you're speaking, and like a resonance. But I felt the throat, my throat activate a little bit. So let's go there. Yeah.
yeah.
So bring your own mind's eye or attention, however you want to, into that space in the body that you know has been activating. And whether you feel it or not exactly right now isn't important, just to know that you're inviting yourself to peer in, to notice, to awaken a relationship to what's happening in this body of yours, these sensations. Good. All right. And I can feel you taking that long exhale. Let's do a few of those intentionally. Longer exhales than inhales. Good. And then exhale that nice and fully. And that 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5. Breathing in again when you're ready. And 1, 2, 3. And maybe a 4 until you round it over and exhale fully again. And exhale as if you can exhale into the space in your body that you are wanting to explore. Nice and long. Good. We'll do one more breath in. And at this time, when you get to the top, I want you to pause and hold it for just a moment. So breathing in, wherever you might be. And then as you hit that 3 or 4 at the top, hold that breath for just a moment in intention to receive, not to suppress yourself, but to receive and let yourself have the energy of that. And exhale, if you haven't already, anytime you need to. And that long 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 kind of way. And then just let it all relax and breathe as naturally as possible. And before I ask any questions, I'm curious if there's anything you want to share that you're noticing.
I'm just noticing, like, somatically that I'm not feeling it as much in my throat right now, but I'm also feeling like a line going up into my ears. My ears have also been, like, pretty clogged, and I'm just kind of noticing the line from the diaphragm up the throat, but then also just, like, pressure in the head that feels like it's almost like screwed in at the ears. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to dive into discovery. Is that okay? Good. What have you decided is off limits about being you? What have you decided is off limits about being you?
Like easy access.
Good. And activate change and generate healing immediately. And what else have you decided is off limits about being you?
Like openness ongoingly. Like there's a cap to openness.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So some, at least to me, like that maybe somewhere along the way you decided you're not allowed to have any more openness, that you needed to keep it shut down somewhere, or just at its peak. It's already had it. It's had its peak. And what would happen if you received more?
Feeling like almost like I'd get like lost inside of it, or but maybe there's also something about like greediness.
Right. So both sides of like, well, I shouldn't want more, that it's greedy to want more. Is that what the greediness sounds like to you?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. There's something. I don't know. I'm almost like I'm like sensing this other person who I met here recently who has since left to she, I don't know, she like evoked something for me around, she's like this very confident, like Jewish artist woman. And I don't know, I think maybe there's like something that was evoked for me in like interacting with her of like getting the feeling that she maybe like grew up feeling like she was so great, like that like people around her were kind of like affirming her and her confidence and greatness, and like I don't know, there was like something in the recognition that like maybe something, I feel like I was given a lot of affirmation in different ways, but I think maybe there was also something slightly different that happened for me around being made to feel like too big or too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
Too much. I could feel the too much that has zing when you said it.
Yeah.
Like I'm either too much or I'm going to be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, right, like with your greatness comes conditions. Like it has to fit into what other people have told you is okay versus just being you. Like what if you find openness and it breaks that cap? What will you learn about yourself? And could that be dangerous or unsafe, or could other people reject you, or could that be too much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like we could clear through some of that and then dive back in here to see what else is here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's clear through all of the constructs and the injury recalls of any ways in which you were implicitly or explicitly told you're too much, and therefore encouraged to keep that cap or find that cap or make one for yourself that could make you acceptable in the eyes of others, or not allow you to be too much, or whatever else might be in there. And releasing injury recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Right. What in your soul's yearning? There's something in your soul that you may have been yearning for, longing for, that allowed you to encourage yourself to create this cap of openness. Like it's only so open, right? To encourage you to put limits on your openness. And doing that, there's almost like, well, there was a cost and a payoff, right? It's like, I'll put this cap over here because this is what I'm yearning for that I might get to receive if I let that other thing go. So I won't go towards too much, but I'll get something else, right? It seems like a bargaining almost that I can feel. Does that feel true?
Yeah.
Is it possible that you were bargaining and that cap is part of a bargaining chip, right? That you made somewhere along your life or maybe a million times along your life to say, oh, no, but this is so important to my soul that it's worth capping my creativity and my intimacy and my openness.
I think it feels connected to the price of like relationship, especially when there's like an organizing, legible dogma that
right.
I don't, yeah, like maybe where I'm actually inclined to express doesn't fit with the organizing logic of some relationship or like some group of people. Family, I guess, being probably the primary side of that.
Yeah, and that's giving me like like this kind of shivery down the center of my chest and almost in the front. Some sense of like the words I'm hearing are like, will I be ostracized? I hear it in a big way. It's like, oh, wow, am I about to get ostracized? Am I going to get kicked out or lose something so valuable to me that I also believe in so deeply that I'm here for relationships and for the coming together, right? The connections and the connective tissue and the care and the love that's shared. And this, will I be ostracized? It feels ancient when I say it. And I don't need to put that on you. So I want to see if that's feeling at all resonant and if that's a place to explore.
Yeah, I feel like there's also something around this like rules or like safety, like something that I'm expressing being a threat to something else.
Meaning that if your openness or creativity or your expression could threaten someone else, or that you'll be at more risk. You're more threatened to yourself if you open it up.
Like people responded to it from a threatened place because it challenged or endangered something for them.
Right. So are there aspects of your identity or your lifestyle or the way you think that challenge society or challenge family norms? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So those are there. Practically speaking, those are things you know, or those are things you're afraid of?
Those are there. I'm just kind of like, I think I'm very different than a lot of people in my family. And I think I'm just feeling maybe a different layer of it right now of like maybe when I was small, or maybe it's even older than my lifetime, of like the way that something that is expressing or like bubbling over in me is actually like a threat to some like some structuring principle of the family or some like behavioral do or don't, that then I realize like, oh, I'm like posing a challenge to something by just like being organic and then internalizing that.
Right. Let's hear you say, if these words resonate, being me poses, just being me, or no, you said organically. Organically being me poses a threat to others that I love.
Yeah.
Can you say that 3 times? Or some version, whatever feels right to you.
Just being me poses a threat to others and their way of doing things. just being me poses a threat to others and their way of doing things.
Let's add others, meaning others I love or others I'm in relationship with, something that adds the personal kind of connection to those others, right?
Yeah. Me just being me poses a challenge to people that I love.
Mm-hmm. Threatens people that I love. Me just being me threatens people that I love. Let's try that on.
Me just being me threatens people that I love.
Great. Say that again 2 more times.
Me just being me threatens people that I love.
Mm-hmm.
Me just being me threatens people that I love.
Mm-hmm. How does that feel to say?
Ugh, it feels like it feels true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And it might be true. What if that's true? What if you being you threatens one of your family members? What if you being you does threaten your beloved? What relationships do you have choice over? Which ones can you adapt yourself in? And when is adaptation appropriate versus when it is adapting ourselves, injuring ourselves, right? Like, you know, how can I know that? Is it important to know that I could be a threat to people that I love if I'm just being incredibly liberated and free in myself? And when is that okay and when is it not? You know, when is that a real risk, right? When does that say, oh my gosh, that's true for my beloved? Do I really want that? Really? It's like, is that really true? And do I need to explore if that's a safe relationship for me? Or if I need to change the shape of it? Or versus like, oh, that's true, but that's something my partnership wants, you know, and that we can work together with. Or that's true for my family, but nobody rejects me because of it. Or it's true for someone in my family and I don't have to show that part of myself there because actually I don't live with them, you know, like, or maybe I do. But so there's something about how to navigate out of a rigidity that says this will always be true no matter what, and an awakening that says, can I learn those parts of myself that I've capped off so that I can know how to use them and how to be me in all different kinds of settings? And when it's important to, you know, like pull something back versus when I can fully be liberated and myself, right? Am I making sense?
Yeah, and I think maybe that's the layer that's like coming up because I think it feel like what we just went into feels like something that I kind of know, but then the way that it's related to like inhibition in the present or like whatever is like trying to come out right now feels a little bit less clear to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hearing that like there's and again, really feel for yourself because I want you to make this yours. Now or in the future, if you change the way you think about it. But I'm feeling totally out of control. When I imagine you letting go of the inhibition and just going for it, it feels like you're going to get threatened yourself. Like it's going to take over and you won't have your own agency or power to do something about it. Like it could, right? So if the energy is so big, it's going to win. And then who am I? Like what happens to me, quote unquote? Will I be okay? Can I survive that? And those are like in a big way. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, I heard that yawn. So all the ways in which we're getting into that unconscious part of this dynamic where your inhibitions, you're reaching to opening your creativity and your intimacy and coming through into more aspects and parts of yourself may in fact actually threaten you and feeling safe with knowing how to manage all that's coming through. Yeah. And when has too much been true for you? When have you been too much for yourself? Yeah. Or have you? Have you been too much for yourself at different points? Or been afraid of that?
I think definitely, and I think also the too much coming through, that's not just me, also feels true of just like... which might be part of the inhibition of like, okay, if you show someone this like rosy openness, and then you're confronted with their darkness, and that just like pours in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, I had this experience. I was at this like 12-day, really intense dance workshop in a few weeks ago, and the whole thing was like very new terrain for me and like very spiritually rigorous. And there came a point where we were supposed to like perform, and it was a lot for me to like do it at all, and I did it, and I like found a way to do it where I was really just like closing my eyes and following the emergent movement, and it wasn't like, hey world, look at me, but I was like being sincere in my own way of like trying to find the thing to express. And I got this like feedback from the teacher that was like, I want to see more of you. Like, I feel like there's all of this stuff inside of you that you're not expressing. And I don't know why, but that really, it like really upset me to receive that. I think one, because I was like, okay, this is true. And also because it's maybe what you're saying of like, it didn't actually feel like it would have been appropriate for me to express more in that moment than what I was expressing.
And it also slightly, I don't know that this was their intention, obviously, but it could be interpreted internally as somebody telling me that I'm doing me wrong. Like I didn't do a good enough job being me.
Yeah.
And like one more time, somebody's message is like, that wasn't enough. That wasn't good enough. Like, the way you did you didn't work for me. You're supposed to do it better, or more open, or more like liberated, or more exposed. And rather than saying, wow, obviously you exposed yourself to the degree that felt safe.
Yeah.
You know? And how to love it and cherish that part of yourself too that has boundaries and wants to be caring and careful with yourself, to not go to places you don't know how to trust what's coming, or trust your own self to be able to hold what's going to happen next and who's watching and what's happening, right? So again, not to down that teacher at all, but more to say, wow, that could interpret in a way that is harmful to you, really. Yeah. And I want to clear that for you, if we can, to move through anything that you internalized in that. And I'm curious, before we do that, want to see, does that feel true? Does it feel like you internalized something in there about doing you being you wasn't what someone else needed, didn't hit the mark somehow?
It maybe felt like a revisitation with something that I maybe would have internalized at a different time in my life. Like, I think I got initially upset and like had an hour where I was like, crying about it. And then I think I kind of came out of it and was like, okay, actually, I don't need to relate to this. I don't need to give this power.
Yeah, power over you. Good.
But I think it's, it's coming up now in this way where it's like I'm returning to writing after having just experienced a lot of writer's block over the last couple of years since finishing my poetry MFA, and there's a familiar knot of frustration coming up that I like associate with writer's block, and I notice myself like jumping around. Like there's like something there that's like, that's maybe a different kind of thing of like, how do I open this in a way where I am letting, or like what's going on in this moment where like it feels like the release valve is kind of like glitching a little bit.
Well, the words that keep occurring to me are, and first of all, I think it's amazing that you were able to go through that moment and have your feelings about it and flush it through to a place of real integrity in yourself to say, no, I'm not going to give that power. That's just this person's opinion, and I get to be me, right? So I just wanted to name and just validate what you said, because that feels like an important self-understanding and capacity and trusting yourself, and I'm thinking like all these caps that we're talking about are somehow capped inside our primal brain, right? There's a survival strategy that is blocking or scrambling your ability to open to that next new layer of consciousness. And it really is just consciousness. It's like consciousness is creativity and it's energy and it's thinking and it's words that come through. And it's like your channel really of who you are. The like, how do I plug into this resource of me? And why am I only plugging in and then it gets jolted or like, right? And it feels like in all of that, I'm hearing the same thing of like the jumble in that moment. So, and I think what it takes to navigate a primal brain is to ask ourselves, is it still safe to hold myself back? Is it still safe to keep myself away from whatever next experience of my life, of my creativity, of my intimacy, or is holding myself back from those intimacies and creativities and information and words, is that actually making me unsafe? So I'm curious, right? Is it actually making you safe or unsafe to scramble and block yourself or be blocked, subconsciously from receiving more?
Mm-hmm.
Or would receiving more actually make you safer somehow?
Yeah, I think the second one, I think that's what this whole like arc of my life has been leading toward. Like, I feel like I am receiving more, and then, there's like some thing that feels like old in this visceral experience that I'm having today.
Yeah, and it's I remember doing this channeling and feeling the message of like, well, I think we all put the way it looked as like, oh, we put these glass walls in the way that we can't climb over or break through because they're too thick and too slippery. And we get to the glass wall, and it's glass wall because we can see where we want to go. And we can use that to just stop ourselves and turn back. Or we can use that to assess where we're going and then decide whether or not it's safe to do so. Mm-hmm. And, the image I got was like, I can sit here at this wall staring at it and wishing and pining for what I want and or feeling frustrated that I can't get over it or break it or turn away. Or I can turn myself to the side and keep my eyes on where I'm going and walk with the wall for a little while until I find the end of it. And it was like this beautiful meditation where then all of a sudden the wall ended. It wasn't that wide. It was like, oh, I only put it there to protect myself so that I could assess and determine if I was going to make safe choices, not to stop me permanently. And I wonder if it's one of these moments where like, this is the glass wall that's here to help you pause so that you don't recklessly run into your future and not make a safe decision. And can we use this as a moment to just pivot you slightly to be able to walk with that wall and find the edge so that you can open and step through? Have you already given yourself the evidence that it's actually safer to take the next step than not? It's actually safer to receive more. And each time that you've received more in your life, have you learned that you can have the resources, the tools, the people, the supports to be able to handle that and be conscious and accountable, right?
Yeah.
Have you already created the frameworks that support you in being able to receive more?
Yeah.
And are you therefore willing to see this as a glass wall moment where you can look very clearly at where you're going and pause? And have you paused long enough to now start walking with instead of at or away from that wall? Okay, so let's feel that together. Let's really feel this gentle pivot of thank you, primal brain. Thank you for stopping me from becoming reckless, from getting out of control, from making choices that would lose my family or injure someone or cause threat that's not required. Thank you. And as you walk with that wall, I want to put those invocations of I have the resources, and if not, I can find them, to assess myself carefully. Can I commit to myself to have the accountability so that I don't get reckless? Can I examine my relationships with honesty and integrity to know where and what to give and what to pull away from? Right? And whatever else is here, I could see you doing a writing project just on that, which is like, what are the questions and the supports I want to put in place so that I can let the wall edge melt and walk forward and receive the life I've already created. So you're only here because you did this, because you've come this far. Right? Yeah, good. And so let's clear anything that blocks you from knowing how to put together the frameworks and the supports and the accountability required so that you can make the decisions you want to be making with care and attention, deliberateness and consciousness, and so that you can possibly receive more than ever before and release all these grids about that being greedy or selfish. Receiving more of our consciousness. It's your consciousness you're wanting to receive. Receiving more of your consciousness, dumbing that down, numbing that down, keeping that away from ourselves, hiding that, doesn't help us navigate being on an earth with the complexity of what humans go through. From my Pee-wee perspective, we're a lot safer when we can have more consciousness about who we are, our divine mission, our soul speak, our purpose in being here, the reasons and the things we're living for, the people we want to share time with, right? The more consciousness and awareness we bring, the safer we are, and the more capable we are of being a contribution to others. And activate change and generate healing immediately. Let's see how all that's feeling on you. What are you noticing?
I'm noticing like a little bit of heat in my body and like scattered like floaty feelings in my head. And then I was also just noticing my mind kind of like wandering to yeah, I think I noticed that there's a shift in how I'm facing other people, because I was here for a week without my partner, and then he came, and there's like a shift in how I'm relating to people in the space with him here.
Right.
And so I'm noticing my attention sort of wandering to these moments of like feeling contraction in interactions with people, even when I'm desiring connection, or like feeling these moments when I like, rather than like see someone, because I think one thing I really want is to like see someone's be clear enough that I like see someone else, rather than seeing like a mirror of myself, or like, like a mirror of my own
projections,
anxieties.
right?
Or like looking for affirmation of something in me through a new conversation with someone new or whatever. So I was just noticing like, oh, it's interesting that my brain's like wandering to that place inside of I don't know how that's connected to the glass wall.
I think what I'm feeling, if I just can name what I'm feeling, is I felt like a almost like a knot in your root, with like just a slight bit of like tension, with like, oh, can I really relax that much? It's like, can I really? That's where I felt it. Feel like that would then drift us out a little bit of ourselves versus coming in. And it makes sense that you mentioned your partner and the relationship and how that impacts who you are socially. And I think that's true for everybody. It changes how we socialize. It's so good to know. It's like, oh, when you're in this space, I do something different. And how can I navigate back to being me while you're here? And even what that would do in your sexuality and in your presence and then again in your rootedness. And so it makes me want to ask, like, what, and it feels like there's more here we could explore for another time too, but today I'm feeling like, what does your root need in order to be supported in learning who you are in this moment? Like, what do you need in those roots? What do you need to be anchored in or held in?
Hmm. I don't know, something I heard is like permission to follow my impulses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was thinking some of your instincts might be towards loyalty because of what you described with your family, right? So it's like both the impulses and then also the intuitions, the intuitive impulses versus like the instinctual impulses. And we talk about that sometimes in our class, right? Where it's like instinct is very feral and very fear-driven and safety-driven, and intuition is driven more from knowing and perception, understanding, awareness. And so there's something about putting them together, right? It's like, and I might even have a question for myself, what does it take for me to lean in to my intuitive impulses and really trust myself, really root in trusting myself? And you don't have to figure it all out, but if that's like the learning that you're in, that's a beautiful place of learning.
Yeah.
What does it take to lean into that versus away from it? And let's see what that feels like. What does it take for you to lean in your root, to like allow yourself to feel like that you're sitting, like in this mossy green deep earth space. Maybe watery, maybe airy, but a way of just like resting in to whatever it is you're learning right now as you unpack what is loyalty in me? How can I hold the us and the individual of me? How can I continue to evolve and trust myself and also want to know who you are separate from me, right? Like, how can I see what safety looks like today and expressing? And what does it take for me to receive even more than ever before and know that that's the safest choice? And activate change and generate healing immediately. What does that do for the mind and the body?
It kind of brings me back in an interesting way to a bit of a knot in the throat and diaphragm. Yeah, I think that there's something here around like the pressure of loyalty.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'll let myself wander this far but not beyond it, or I'll let myself express this thing but not more.
Right. And in this case, like in relationship to your partner, don't you want to know that if you, as you are becoming and changing, that this is still the relationship you want to be in? And if becoming and changing dissolves the relationship, wouldn't you want to know that instead of like holding yourself in a box to keep something, right? Or to make someone else comfortable, or to think we're making them comfortable, because who knows, right? Like, so are you willing to take those risks and learn who you are so that you know what you're offering to this relationship, and also to know whether or not that is the relationship and the partnership and what your partner wants too. You're not dependent on them at this stage of your life, in this particular dynamic, the way that you were as a child with a parent. And the kind of loyalty with a child and parent, who, when we're dependent on them or dependent on our family, is very different in where we take risks or where we don't. And so you get to navigate this differently, to say, right, it isn't safest for me to box myself in and hold back. Like, that doesn't actually show me if this relationship is healthy for me. That only shows me that I can box myself in to make this relationship, to keep it in some format or form that I think I committed to, or that they want, what I think they want from me, right?
Yeah.
So I go back to one of our questions, like, is it truly safest for you to not experience and know more of yourself? Is it safest for this relationship for you to hold that back?
No.
Yeah. Right. I feel this tenderness. I think you to just keep exploring the question. We don't have to know all the answers, but what is safe and what isn't safe, and what risks am I taking, and do I want to take them consciously or not? And that's okay if you say, no, I don't want to. Actually, the relationship is important to me and I want to preserve that first, and I'll do this work later. And there's no have-tos. And I want you to find the governance internally to know, am I choosing this or not consciously? Am I choosing to explore in this way? Is it even a conversation you can have with your partner to say, hey, I think I want to like open to more and receive more, and that might change my orientations. And is that okay for us? Can I explore those parts? Like, however you do this, is really, for me, it's about the deliberateness and consciousness to know what you are or are not choosing in it. Because I think if you try to choose something but then tell yourself no, then you're living in a lockdown that you're not empowered in either way, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm trying to do both things rather than saying, oh, I'm grappling with whether or not this is the safest, most generative moment to like take these risks and what the cost of these risks might be. And so let's look at them, right? And let's decide. So you get to play in there. That's what I would encourage for your continued journey with it.
Yeah. It's reminding me of like an older but ongoing lesson around also just like what is a relationship. It doesn't mean we like give each other like just these kinds of ways that I can posture half consciously of just like putting a lot more weight onto something than it necessarily like putting all these expectations that then I'm like stressed out to fulfill, but it's like no one is like explicitly asking for that.
It's actually, you could have a lot of fun, and I don't know how long you've been in this relationship and how much this will be with this person, but you could have a lot of fun creating a vision statement for yourself of why you're in it, or a mission statement, and even asking yourself, like, if I do this relationship well and I get the results I want, which is that maybe what you want is to have a partner that sticks with you, that you can keep moving towards a longer term commitment. But whatever it is, if I get to that place, then what have I learned about myself? What am I hoping to feel? Who do I want to be? Like, what would I say Matisse, has developed into? So it's like when we look at ourselves that way, we say, right, what is the vision of being successful in terms of how it cultures and develops who I am in my relationship to self? Who would I be if I'm successful? Yeah. And not like, what would I have, but who would I be? Who would I become? Because inside every relationship, I think there's like all these secret hidden desires to have parts of ourselves wake up, or have them healed, or have them connected to or seen. And that's all in here. It's like, if I go into the contract and do it well, will you set me free? Is sometimes one we have. And I think there's some good like discovery you could do for yourself. And again, I'm happy to get back on in session more with you to really look at like, what is it that I'm trying to explore by choosing this person? What am I hoping for inside myself? Like, who do I think they can help me become if they show up in my life the way I want them to, right? Mm-hmm. And then can I become those things regardless of who they are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Differentiation. So you're working on attachment and differentiation, how much attachment is loyalty to you, how to like step back and differentiate without causing like a full-on schism intensity. Like, it's like, is differentiating going to be unsafe? Like this is really healthy, just internal work. What are we attached to inside ourselves even, so I love this whole flow. I feel like there's so much you could probably listen again and play with and journey with, but I'm really appreciating the textures of who you are.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for your presence and attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the last thing I want to do before we hang up is release the injury recall if there are other kind of ancestral lifetimes or soul-driven lifetimes that are in the way of you seeing who you are today, so that you can really assess this earth, this time, this life, this moment with as much clarity as possible. Would that be generative for you?
Yes, I think there's always a lot of ancestral stuff.
Yeah, you're a very deep soul, so I imagine that. Yeah. So let's release the injury recall on any of the ancestral stuff or soul-driven stuff that, and really invite that any aspects of that are important to being you today that we want to receive, feel, know, listen to where you come from, and that simultaneously we also want to let go of the places where you come from that aren't relevant to who you are in this moment and that aren't relevant to your own soul's life journey as the body you are. And releasing injury recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing. Immediately. Ooh, I have so many shivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a lot of, ancestral entrapment.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think a lot of us have that. And again, some of that is ours to work on, right? It's like we're learning, we're healing, we're discovering, we're changing, we're sometimes just living with. And some of that we get more than our share. It's actually not relevant to what we're learning in the moment, and it's just clogging up the pores, And so, again, I think there's a lot in here for you for material to come back to, and you could take parts of this session and workshop them and play shop them, I usually say, and just, do your own process on or other discoveries on and see what they bring. But I really appreciate the textures and there's so much that you're holding in different ways. And I do really feel the glass wall, and I really do feel like this is a renegotiation of old habits and patterns and arriving at who you are right now to reassess what is safe for me today and can I make those choices, right? Yeah. And activate change and generate healing immediately. Is there anything else you need before we close up?
I would take one more release injury recall, honestly. I feel it.
Yeah. Let's do that again. And so for whatever aspects of that you need, we're going to release injury, recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Let's command the vibrational source of consciousness to release injury recall and to support you in finding the filters and the discernment to know what is your work right now and what is not. What does receiving mean? What is your creative flow, your intimacy, your openness? What are you ready for? What is safest for you and what is not? Releasing injury recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And one more time for all the ancestors, we thank all of their work they did to survive, to be here, to be part of what creates a body for you in this moment and a life. And to release the injury recall on any of their wounds or traumas or yours with them that are no longer required or generative for you. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And release injury recall. This will be the last one on your karma, on your own soul's trajectory, and on anything you have brought in from any other lifetimes or universes or places or circumstances or situations that actually isn't yours or isn't required for you to process today, so that you can see and define and redefine loyalty, safety, openness, receiving, creativity, flow, abundance, and being you. And activate change and generate healing immediately. How's that feel?
It feels good. I feel like a little bit of a tired heaviness, but I think it's, I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. These are like training for the marathons. At some point you're like, oh, I'm just tired. That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of work. You've been doing a lot of work. Everything you described about where you've been recently feels like it's all very deep, emotional, spiritual rewiring. And that those are muscles. This really is, you really are building muscles, and I think sometimes we hit the moment where it gets acknowledged and we have a minute to pause for the rewire. And for a second, we just feel the exhaustion. It's like, oh, that's been hard, I trust it. Yeah. So be gentle on yourself today, the next couple of days as this integrates, and drink a lot of electrolytes and water, and see if you can stay as soft as possible, and just letting yourself find the parallel walk with that glass wall to start seeing, right, where am I? Where am I now?
Yeah, that's a really helpful image.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Fun to be on the podcast.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Matisse, for showing up so fully in that session. It's like, what a magnificent experience it was to feel you meandering through your unique and beautiful expression of you. I just so appreciate you. And I don't know about you, but my heart feels nourished and full after experiencing the process they went through together. So many resonant moments and beautiful ahas. As always, there is so much here I could hone in on, including the whole metaphor Gabrielli brought in around the glass wall, which has been such a useful and powerful metaphor for me over the years. But the piece I really want to go into in a little bit more depth today was actually towards the end of the session when Gabrielli brings in the release, injury, recall activation. And before I dive in all the way into this particular activation, I wanted to share a bit more about what an activation actually is, what we use them for, and why. Because sometimes context can be helpful, and activations are something you can use in your own life right here and now. And at the very end, I'll offer the release, injury, recall activation for you to experience for yourself, just as a sweet little gift for you. So let's dive into activations here for a minute. In short, they're just sets of words that have been very deliberately chosen, and they are said the same each time, very much like a mantra. They can be really powerful in helping us tap into a deeper sense of knowing and awareness. They can move, clear, and shift energy, and they invite us into the possibility of healing right here, right now. They encourage us to be curious, to let go of rigid points of view, and to open up to new possibilities. These activations aren't just about thinking differently, they're about relating to our thoughts, feelings, sensations, and energy in whole new ways. Another thing that I really love about activations is they really empower us to step into our agency, our power, our potency, and they offer us a way to take responsibility for and to take charge of the energy, the consciousness, and the mindfulness we live in. There are many, many things we cannot control in life, but we do get to be in charge of our minds. And when we can't do that, we get to be in charge of the energy we emit, that we share with the world, and that which we also receive. Each activation statement carries its own unique meaning and vibrational essence. Depending on the statement, they can help us discern what's not needed, bring us into the present moment, release what doesn't belong to us, and invoke an even deeper connection to our essence and our own divine nature. And in short, they're freaking amazing. They've changed my life and thousands of others. And I really hope that this next activation I'm going to share with you begins to, allow for you to really feel the power of these activations. So the activation I want to speak about here today is called release, injury, recall. This one is so freaking helpful. and can help us discern what is actually happening in present time versus what has creeped in from the past that might be messing with or obscuring our ability to see clearly what is right in front of us. It's the go-to activation when trauma is at play and when we might be triggered by something someone said, or maybe a siren goes off that startles an old trauma response, or you actually hurt yourself physically, like you might hit your head and you have a history of concussions. So then you might be freaking out more than you need to about this little head bump you just experienced because you're really worried that maybe it's worse than it is and you're bracing yourself for that next concussion. Sadly, I'm speaking from experience on that one, but we all have these moments. You're probably having some pop into your awareness right now. This activation is really about addressing those stored memories, emotions, and sensations that can lead to reactions that seem way out of proportion to what's actually happening in the present moment or just happened. And I just want to say this is totally normal and is a sign that most likely you've hit a pocket of some kind of trauma in you. So when this happens, you can bring this new tool out of your spiritual toolbox, and it can be a great help. You've already heard Gabrielli say it, but I'll repeat it again and then speak more into what the words actually mean. So here it goes. I command the vibrational source of consciousness to release injury recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And I usually take a breath right after just to cleanse it. Push it all the way through. You can hear in the words, we're really taking command of the energy. Because guess what? We can. You have the power and capacity to command your own body and energy to do things. It's a real reclamation of your own agency, your own potency, your own capacity to move and shift energy. Now, being a sexual abuse survivor like I am, these words first really scared me. I was like, no, I don't want to command anything. It felt too forceful, too powerful, and I had some real injury recall on all of it. So I released some injury recall, and here we are. No, just kidding. But I mean, I did have to release injury recall about it once I began to realize and feel into the words and like, oh, I actually can do this. And really, like in all seriousness, it's true. It was hard for me to be willing to take charge of my own freaking energy, my own sovereign self, and to know that I could do that safely and that I wasn't going to hurt myself or someone else just by taking charge of my own freaking energy. So I command the vibrational source of consciousness, which is our unique orb of consciousness that helps us filter and sort what our body and spiritual being might need in any given moment. You know when you really feel someone and you can feel that person's unique essence? It's like energetic. It's their own divine energy, their own unique essence. That's what I'm talking about. So when we command the vibrational source of consciousness, we're calling on that part of ourselves that's plugged into divinity, that's not human, but can help us discern and know what our body or being might need and has the capacity for faith and deeper knowing. And it's not, quote unquote, my vibrational source. It's because it's not human. It's not an object. It's consciousness. It's energy. It's vibration. So we're commanding the vibrational source of consciousness to release injury recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic. So we're saying any way in which I'm in recall. And usually with this activation, it's something in the past that may have been challenging or traumatizing. And we're saying, let's release all the recall around those experiences so that we can come into present time and know what we actually might need in this moment. Releasing injury recall, physical. So around your actual physical body, mental, your thoughts, thought patterns, and your mind. Spiritual, really any way in which it's hitting on spiritual injury, challenge, or recall from your life or past life spiritual traumas as well. Emotional, so anywhere in which the recall is hitting the emotional facets of who you are and your feelings around something. Energetic, pertaining to the actual energy around something or the energy that might be coming at you or in you that might be triggering to you. And genetic. So that's any way in which the thing at hand is hitting ancestral traumas that you may have inherited in your DNA. All of that is very much simplified, but hopefully that makes some sense to you as you feel into those different categories. And then we say past, present, and future. So any way in which I have injuries flooding in from the past, anything that's in the present moment, and also anything I projected into the future or have been afraid might happen in the future. And then we say activate change and generate healing immediately. So it activates and enlivens our awareness of where change is happening because we're all energy and energy is always changing. However frozen or stuck we might feel, we're still always changing. We're breathing, we're moving. Nothing is ever truly stagnant or the same. And then generate, promote healing immediately. Not tomorrow, not in a year from now, right now. Like I really get to have more awareness now. And then after each activation, we usually take a nice big breath to flush it all through, if that feels good for you. So again, I command the vibrational source of consciousness to release injury recall. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And taking a nice deep breath if that feels good. Flushing it all the way through. And now if you want to play a little bit more here with me, let's have you bring in something you might have been struggling with recently. Maybe you've already been thinking about something as I've been sharing about this activation. If you want, you can bring that into your consciousness right now. It could also be a place where you're having pain in your body. Maybe you have an injury. So just taking a moment to bring that in. And I'm going to release injury recall for you. So you can just receive. I command the vibrational source of consciousness to release injury recall. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And breathing if that feels good. And feeling into that place or that feeling or memory. And let's just release all the injury recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Taking a nice breath. And you can just sort of shake it all off if it feels good to just move your shoulders or your head or just shake your body a little bit. Move it all the way through. And there you have it. I will make sure you get this activation in the show notes so you can play with it more. You can weave it in. This is something you can do like a mantra many, many times over. It's really, really helpful. I've sometimes taken it on and just been like, I'm going to do 10 every morning and every night. Let's see what happens. And just play with it. Also, just to say about activations, we really ask for people, you can share it with anyone you want, but really to not do it for somebody unless you have their consent, because they're powerful and they can shift and change things. And we want to make sure to be in integrity around that. So you're not trying to like change someone or help them heal without them actually wanting it. So just as a little caveat. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's been so lovely to share one of my favorite tools with you. And again, thank you so much to Matisse for sharing in your healing journey with us. Saying a huge thank you to Ali Halpert, who's the amazing musician who wrote the songs that you hear in this podcast. We have had the privilege to be able to sing some of Ali's songs in our retreats and workshops, and they've been really powerful additions to our work with people. You can hear more of Ali's music and check out more about Ali on Ali's website, AliHalpert.com. That's AlyHalpert.com.